All right, Devin, that's going to bring us to crowdfunding corner for this week it's October 9th today, but I think this will go up on the what is time? The 11th of October. First up this week is a game called LA1, a CyberNoir detective board game. It's from the creator of Arkham Horror, which I think is why the game's getting a bit of buzz. And it kind of reminds me of a game called Chronicles of Crime. But in Chronicles of Crime, you kind of use an app and you punch into the app like, okay, we're going to this location now. We're going to interrogate this person. And then it even has some like virtual reality segments where like you look through a room to look for clues and stuff. This is a similar feel in my opinion, but in more of a cyberpunk world. But it looks like each player has their own player on this board. And so instead of you kind of making decisions together, I think you'll be moving separately, taking actions at the location that you're at, looking for clues in order to solve these cases and go through this big story. As this humongous deck of cards, I think just there it said over 400 story cards. And so different events will tell you like, go read this card, and then it'll pop up or whatever. I'm a little iffy on story-based games, but if it's the right group and they're simple enough usually, then I think they can be an okay time. So if you like games like that, Chronicles of Crime, then this might be one that you want to look at. Again, sorry for the train, it's blaring its horn. But that is LA1, a CyberNoir detective board game. It's on Kickstarter until the 16th. Next up is a couple of dungeon crawl games, which are usually not my cup of tea. I've yet to play one that I've loved. I think it's just generally because if I'm going to play a game like that where I'm just moving to the next spot and then smack, 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 punch a monster, I'd rather play a video game. I think that's why for me. But anyways, this one's called Deliverance, Council of the Fallen. It's a reprint of the game that must have come out a few years ago, and an expansion. I think that expansion is called Council of the Fallen, so the game is called Deliverance. And like I said, this is a dungeon kind of crawl game where you're moving along this map and fighting these different monsters. I think the unique thing about this game is the way that you build out your character. You choose from like a bunch of different cards, and I think they say, yeah, you choose your angel here, and then you can choose a bunch of ability cards, and they say there's like hundreds of different combinations of abilities that you can select for your characters. So that's supposed to be where the variability is that, okay, I'm playing a different build basically of this character this time. So hopefully that would give it some, freshness from game to game. But then, yeah, other than that, it looks like you're going through fighting monsters, and I think you're trying to save souls or something from these monsters. And there's probably like some bosses at the end of the scenarios, which is a common thing in dungeon crawling games. So that one's Deliverance. If you've played the original and liked it, then you might want to look at this expansion. Or if you like dungeon crawls, you might want to take a peek at that one. It's on Kickstarter until the 18th. Next up is if you took a dungeon crawler and shrunk it down to a box of Altoid mints, then that's what we get here. We get Dark Tomb, the Ice Chasers. This is actually I think the second game in this kind of Dark Tomb series. It's basically, again, a dungeon crawl with different scenarios and characters you can play as with dice-based combat where you're moving through kind of a map or a dungeon before some sort of like boss fight. But this one is really small. There's no miniatures. It fits in that tiny box. You build the map with cards that are shuffled, and you move cubes around on the cards in order to represent your character and the enemies. Very cool idea in order to have it be that tiny, because that really is small. It is like very small. And it seems like it's pretty well laid out. The iconography and everything looks nice. Even the cubes have like a tiny little printing on them for like the monsters and stuff. It has a 20-sided die that fits in that little tray. And I think it's $20, and I think the shipping is $7 in the United States. So, it's a lot cheaper than Deliverance, that's for sure. So if you like dungeon crawlers, again, and you want one to put in your pocket or in your cargo shorts, and then go, skateboard and then play the dungeon crawl at the skate park, there you go.
That's a great idea.
That's what the kids are doing nowadays, right?
Guaranteed.
I don't know. Okay, next up is a big one. Valheim was a very popular video game. How was that, 2 years ago? Maybe. I don't know. This is Valheim, the board game. And I think the goal with this game was to try and... I've never played Valheim, but to try and replicate the video game experience here in a board game. It's a cooperative game where you're fighting monsters, trying to kick them off this land, but you're also doing a lot of other things. You're collecting resources from the land, exploring the land, and then with those resources, you can build different furniture pieces in your house. You collect food, and then you cook food on your fire. There's like different food cards. So I think it's trying to simulate the survival and crafting elements of Valheim. And yeah, I think there were some recipe helper cards there as well. There's I think a couple different versions. The nicer version has like a big 3D house that you can put all your stuff in, and has wooden resource tokens, and then has big miniatures and stuff, where the base version is just all cardboard. So lots of options there. If you liked Valheim, or if you like cooperative games where you're fighting monsters, again, kind of like a dungeon crawl, but this one's more of like a survival game in a way. I do think there is, though, an end boss scenario for each of the kind of scenarios you play. But cool miniatures. Again, I think this is mostly for fans of the video game, but it does have cool pieces and components. So I think it's got quite a bit of love. It has over $1 million funded at this point. That one is Valheim, the board game. It is on Gamefound until October 22nd. Yeah, the standard edition, 65 euros. And the deluxe edition is a much thicker box for 115 euros. Okay, going from a big game to a small one. This next one is called Mischief, and it is a small card game, but it's from a very famous card game designer. His name is Dan Kassar. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but he is well known for a card game called Arboretum, which I actually have. It's a brutal card game. I think it's very well made and very smart in how you play it, but it can be a very mean game where you're making these groupings of trees, and if I look over and see, oh, Devin's making that grouping of trees, I have the highest value of that tree type, so I'm just going to keep it in my hand, and since I have it in my hand, Devin will not be able to score those trees at the end of the game. So it's a very mean strategic game in that way. This one seems maybe a slightly less mean, but kind of similar in that you're thinking between each card play. I can play a card with the same value on the other side of this lane, and it will, I think, get rid of yours. Or I can play a card that will protect yours by being one value lower, and that gets me the friendship token. So he makes very unique card games, in my opinion. I like this weird, funky art style in this one. Since the games are so funky, it's hard for me to know if I will even like it. but just from the videos and the reading that I did, it did seem very unique. There's a couple different versions. I think the base version is $39. And then there are a couple more fancy ones that have like a cloth and a neoprene board instead of cardboard, and a couple other upgrades that are a bit more expensive than that. But wanted to give it a shout out because I do think it's cool when designers do unique things, and that's definitely the feeling I got playing Arboretum and the feeling I got watching and looking at this game. But just know that going in that there might be a tinge of like meanness in the game, but that's pretty common in a lot of card games. You know, where I can get 3 points doing this, but it's better for me to deny you 10 points, you know, which is just strategic play, but sometimes feels mean. So I don't know.
Yeah, I can do a lane battler and strategically stop you in a turn. But to know that I'm destroying your entire plan for the game, so like you're hoping so bad that you get your plan, and I'm just like, hey, I can't do it. I don't know.
Yeah, that one's a little more brutal than Radlands that we played a couple weeks ago. So I agree. But that's Mischief. It's on Kickstarter. Scroll up to the top, Devin. I actually didn't write down when that one ends. My mistake. It ends on the 22nd. Okay, next up is a game called Twisted Cryptids, and it's from a company called Unstable Games, and I'm generally not a fan of games like the ones this company makes. They made like Unstable Unicorns, I think was what it was called, and these games kind of remind me of like, what's that party game that everybody has played that I think is really dumb?
Exploding Kittens.
Yeah, or something like that, which
I don't know.
Hey, you pulled one out. And anyways, but I did play one of their games that I like, actually. I bought it for our youngest brother, not youngest, second youngest brother. And it was called Slay something. Dang it, it's Here to Slay. Here to Slay is what it was called. And it was a pretty fun little card game. I do think this company's games have cool artwork, but usually like the components are bad and like it's not anything to write home about. This one, it might be in that same like component boat because it's pretty cheap. Like $29 for the full game here is pretty low for Kickstarter standards. I imagine this game will probably come to retail and be sold on Amazon, which is, you know, kind of where the rest of their games have exploded. And there's a few other editions you can get. There's one with these really cool vinyl figures as opposed to the tokens that you'll be playing with in the base version. But in this game, you're playing as these kind of cryptids, and you're hiding in the woods from people. And you don't want them to find you sometimes, and other times you need to kind of lure them around in order to score points. And so you're moving around on this board. It doesn't look overly complicated, but has kind of fun artwork as you're playing as these little monsters. And it's not really area control in that way, but you're moving around. You have to hide, and you put different stacks of cards in certain hiding spots. And if people go there, then you have to flip over the top card of that deck, and whatever card that is like what happens when they like almost find you. And it could be like you, like one of them was you stood still and like pretended to be a scarecrow or something. And so there's like different things that happen when the people like try to see you. So I don't know. I feel like it could be a pretty fun experience, but I don't think every game from this company is for me, for sure. And yeah, like I said, the really expensive version I think looks really cool with those vinyl figures, but only get that if you're really rich. I would be just kind of going for the base version because that's a $200 set there. I think the one before it, the $140 one, maybe had the vinyl figures too. Oh no, they're acrylic standees, it looks like.
Yeah, they look like they're flat, and then these ones turn kind of like more.
Yeah, those ones are vinyl,
3D.
like nice 3D figures. But yeah, so I don't know. Check that one out if you like a simpler game. It looks a little bit unique. That is Twisted Cryptids. It's on Kickstarter also until October 22nd. Okay, and then we're going to end with a couple little card games. First one is called EcoLogic, and it is a ecosystem game, is what it says. And very unique looking game here, where you start the game with 4 of these different like boards in front of you that kind of remind me of a section of the Wingspan board. And then you'll line them up in some way. And then I don't know every rule of how this works, but you'll basically be playing cards from your hand down onto your boards, and they'll give you different things, and there's different restrictions on where and when you can place them. And then I think it's a card drafting game, so you'll be either passing or discarding cards to the other players. But I think a couple of the important things here is they tried to be pretty accurate here with like the animals that are in the game and some of the like relationships that animals and plants might have together. And so the goal that he said in the video at least was that we wanted some people to at least learn a little bit about what relationships might exist in the wild. Seems like it's being made by a very independent team. The guy made the video all by himself, it looked like at the top. And it looks like a pretty solid game. I really like the artwork. There's like 250 or so cards, and I think they are all unique. They have cool artwork. And yeah, it just looks like it could be a pretty fun card game. I also like that on the back of the cards, it tells you what type of card it is. If it's like a plant or a bug or a bird or a fish. And so when you're drawing from one of the 2 face down decks, you're not totally blind. You can see like the backside of the card. You're like, okay, that one's a bird. I know I need a bird. Cool idea there. So wanted to give that one a shout out. I think it looks really cool. I need to look more into exactly how the draft and everything plays in the game. It also looked like it was delivering pretty soon, I think in December, which again is pretty uncommon, but probably just because they're a smaller entity. They're not going to have thousands and thousands of pledges. So kind of they can get it out a little earlier, I bet. So that is EcoLogic. That one's on Gamefound until the 22nd. Okay, and then last up this week is another card game. This one is from Thunderworks Games, who did what's that called? Cartographers, and some other games. I've only played Cartographers of theirs. This one is called Citizens of the Spark, and has some really crazy like fantasy animal artwork. I think the artwork kind of looks fun. It's like very colorful and quirky. And in this game, you will be taking a row of cards from this, I think it's a 3x3 grid. And whichever row you take, you then take all of those cards and put them in front of you. And if you already have a card of that type, then it stacks on top of it. And then after you take your cards, you get to activate one of your sets of cards. But the action that it activates will be at the strength level of however many cards it's stacked on. So your actions get stronger and stronger and stronger as you get more of the same card. And then everybody else gets to also follow and do an action in their tableau of cards if they have one that matches the same, I think, type. So there is a follow action, which is nice. And yeah, it looks like a pretty simple game in that way. I'm kind of gravitating towards like simple card games I can play in like 20 to 40 minutes, though. I think that's a kind of a sweet spot for a game like that. So it has a couple different versions. It's $40. Includes 300 of those cards. Again, there's many duplicates because of that stacking component there. The $55 version has a playmat and I think both versions come with a little bonus pack of cards for backing it on Kickstarter. Most of their games come to retail, so I imagine that this one will as well, but I don't know. I'm guessing that little bonus pack of cards is probably the Kickstarter exclusive. I really like that they have a plastic custom insert, like a good custom insert. So, yeah, I think that's kind of everything to know about this one. There are like I just got a game that has this system, and I really like it, where there are dividers between all of the sets of cards. Makes the storage in the box look really nice. And I do think the other cool thing about this game is, of that set of 300 cards, there are 10 cards of 30 different types. And in each game, I think you only take, I can't remember the number, if it was 10 or 12 of the 30. So you choose some and shuffle them all together in a big deck, and then you play with that deck. And so on the back of either the rulebook or the box, they have like a suggestion table, and they say if you want like a fast game, choose maybe these ones. Or if you want like a longer one, or one that is a little meaner, or one that is a little more complicated, or whatever. And so you can make the game quite a bit different just by the different combination of those 30 different factions that you choose for that play, which is a cool idea. I like a little bit of variability, as long as the variability doesn't make it hard to remember how the game plays, or make setup a bear. In that scenario, it wouldn't. So, anyways, I thought it looks pretty cool. I didn't love Cartographers though. I know I'm very much in the minority there. A lot of people love that one, but it's not my favorite roll and write. So, Citizens of the Spark on Kickstarter until the 23rd. Okay, Devin, that's our 8 games for the week. Which one gets Devin's seal of pick of the week?
I think it'll shock you.
Oh, boy.
But I'm going to go with... What do you think I'm going to pick?
With you saying it might shock me, I think I was leaning towards Deliverance.
No, sir. I'm going to choose EcoLogic for a few reasons. Unique mechanics, small team. I respect people that, I don't know, it just kind of melted my heart when you said, I think he just like made his own solo video for this website. I was like, oh, I want him to do well. And like, he's trying to teach you something in the game, and there's the artwork's decent, fun little boards, and the mechanic of knowing partially what the card you're picking is interesting.
Yeah, I do think that is I like it when games use the back of the card, because it's such wasted space sometimes. Sometimes I just like the cool artwork, but if you use it in some unique way, I think that can be really cool.
Yeah, so I hope they do well.
Mm-hmm. That's a good pick. I like that pick. For my pick of the week, a tough one. I think I'm actually going to give it to Citizens of the Spark, the one we were just looking at. A little bit of risk for me because I didn't love their last game that I played, but this one looks different. And like I said, I'm kind of into like shorter card games that you can play fast, but then have almost like infinite replay value, because next time you play it, even though you remember the rules, it's going to play differently, just based on the people you're playing with, and in this game's case, based on which of those 10 mini decks you shuffle together. Kind of reminds me of Compile, which we played and liked quite a bit recently, where you shuffle the mini decks together to make your kind of customized deck. So that's kind of a cool idea to have in a small little game here. So that's probably going to be mine. There are a couple others. EcoLogic I think looks cool, and Mischief as well were probably my other two that I would have turned to. But yeah, I'm going to give it to Citizens of the Spark. And that one's on Kickstarter. I don't think I said this, until the 23rd of October. All right, well, that's going to do it for Crowdfunding Corner.